Go back to the $1 bill again. A little history lesson here. Now, March 1st, 1997, I was doing a seminar in Los Angeles, California. And in that seminar, somebody asked me a question, what do you know about trusts? I says, well, what do you want to know? He says, well, I've got a trust here. He says, would you look at it? He says, sure. There's 40 people in the audience. Hands it to me and says, well, this is garbage. He says, what do you mean it's garbage? I says, well, the parsing syntax grammar is all wrong. So I went ahead and I took just the first paragraph and I syntaxed it, put it up on the board, told them what it meant. Then I wrote it in the correct language. 2 IRS agents were in the front row. Jumped up and realized that I just broke $40 trillion worth of trust held in the United States. That's 25 million trusts. As they hit the door, trying to get out the door at the same time to get to the payphones, because back then we only had payphones, they locked their shoulders in the door jamb, and it looked like the Keystone cops trying to get out of a phone booth. Well, everybody had a really good laugh as these 2 clowns were trying to get through the door, but what they were doing is trying to get to the phone first. And in the next 5 days, they harvested $100 billion in trusts across the United States under false and misleading statements under parsing syntax grammar. I broke the world of trust. Well, what they did is when they took those $100 billion, they sold that money on Wall Street. The second week, they took another $100 billion and sold it. Third week, they took another $100 billion and sold it. March 1st, 1997, the United States stock market stood at 6,000. On March 21st, it was at 5,300. Dropped 10%, 600 points. So I called up the Postmaster General of the United States and I said, why are you guys selling your money? Why don't you buy .com stock with it? As the electronics, there's going to be the new phase of planet Earth for communications. The fourth week, when they took $100 billion, they also went ahead and they took the other $300 billion they just stole out of the trust industry and they bought stock with it, causing the stock market to jump 700 points in the fourth week. And they continued to harvest the trust industry, which was money that was not in circulation. And the stock market went from 5,300 to 14,200, all the way up to 9/11. And then 9/11 brought everything back down to 6,000 again because of the new terrorist bill and all that stuff. We'll get into that later. But going back to Bill Clinton, he says, how am I going to go in front of Congress here in 2 weeks? I says, well, you're going to hold up a $1 bill. Walk into Congress, say, ladies and gentlemen, before we get started today, I'm going to tell you the truth. He says, but you won't be able to handle the truth. Phrasing Jack Nicholson. He says, you know, we're going to take you back to when you were 10 years old, 5th grade English. He says, first off, we have a line that goes around the money here. March 1st, 1997, I sued the United States Treasury under maritime law boxing. And that's why all your money today doesn't have any boxes on it. If you've see the 10, it's got a circle around the 10. And the 20 has a circle around the 10. So does the 50s and 100s and the 5s. They're all the same. No more boxes except for the $1 bill. That's because there's so much Masonic information on the back. The pyramid has 72 stones on it. That's for 72, the rule 72 of banking. You take the interest first and you walk down to the principal. The all-seeing eye is Masonic. The capstone has never been completed because the process of discovery is always in motion. But going back to the beginning, it says the United States of America. Now, we all studied that prepositions were of, and the article was the. When you separate the prepositions, they all become adverbs. That means you have 68 prepositions and 38 articles. Together, you have 100 adverbs. So, the as an adverb now modifies united to be a no citizen. UN is no, IT is citizen. ED is in past time, which means you have no now time jurisdiction. It's also an adjective because whenever you put 2 nouns together called the United States because it's a title of a country, United becomes a fact and States becomes a fact. But when you put a fact in front of a fact, the first fact becomes an adjective, which now turns the second fact, and an adjective is coloring or modification, which now changes the fact into a pronoun. P-R-O means no, N-O means no, and U-N means no. The pronoun is now connected to the adverb, ADV, vowel two consonants, no contract. And then the adverb modifies, modify is change, change is motion, motion is action, and action is verb, and America becomes a dangling participle verb on the money. Now, A is a single syllable. Therefore, A means no. M-E-R-I is Latin for mercy, and C-A is Latin for sheep. No mercy for the sheep. So we pay 65% taxes. But because America is the verb on a corporate instrument. Now we have two signatures on the money. Therefore, this is a corporate instrument. Corporations are under Title 15, Section 1692E, false and misleading statements. Carries a penalty of $25 million and 30 years in prison for every note published under Title 15, Section 78FF. Under Title 15, Section 1639A, there was no notification given to the United States population that the modification of grammar under Title 18, Section 1001, which is the fictitious conveyance of language, was going to be used on our Federal Reserve notes on our money. So to protect the fraud, we put a box around it. Anything in a box is an enclosed area and can't be considered. It was engineered, folks, not a mistake, engineered. Just like you build a space shuttle, it's engineered. If it's perfect, it works. Well, we had a perfect fraud. What's the first two little words over here? It says this note. It doesn't say for this note or by this note or of this note or with this note. It says this note. Therefore, we drop the preposition. This becomes an adverb making note a verb. Does this look like a verb to you? Misrepresentation. So now we have a Title 18, Section 1341 mail fraud. Carries a $1 million fine and 30 years in prison. Title 18, 1001, fictitious conveyance of grammar. Title 18, Section 13, Title 15, Section 1692E, false and misleading statements. And we have Title 18, 1621, perjury, because we didn't advertise it. Now we have 4 criminal acts that take place on the dollar bill. Bill Clinton then says to Congress, you know, in 2 weeks I've got to address the union and do my union address. I have to tell the world that America's a verb on the money, and then articulate the criminal activities that's taking place here and disqualify all U.S. currency that 150 countries worldwide depend on for commerce, food, and energy. Or we can seal a case. All those in favor of sealing the case, raise your hand. 102 hands goes up, and he walks out and doesn't say a word. Now, who controls money? Universal Postal Union. Universal Postal Union gets the word, and all 250 countries are told to stand down. Bill Clinton's case is sealed, and nobody talks about Bill Clinton's indiscretion. Shortly thereafter, Hillary Clinton runs for President of the United States against Obama. Does anybody talk about the indiscretion of Bill and Hillary? Not a peep. Not even North Korea, not even Afghanistan, not even the Middle East countries. All the people that hate the United States are all told by the Universal Postal Union, you will keep your mouth shut and don't talk about anything of Bill Clinton, or he's going to spill the beans on the language. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. You think you got freedom of speech? Yeah, it stops with the money. Who controls the money controls the world. Always follow the gold. So therefore, Hillary doesn't make it. Obama's elected as the 47th consecutive left-handed president. Romney is right-handed, by the way. There's never been a right-handed president. What does that tell you? Who's going to win the election? Obama, yes. Or me. I have 5 billion people on my website. I have the 58% of the world's population studying parsing syntax grammar. I could very easily be as a written-in candidate come November 5th, 6th. Yeah, November 6th, that's right, Tuesday. Just like Lewinsky did in Poland. Stood up, people found him to be an honest person, and he got 92% of the write-in vote. Became the best president Poland ever had for 10 years until he took a bribe and got thrown in jail. True story. So the money is a key here. Always follow the money. Now, you came here, most of you, or some of you, are involved with mortgages. The mortgage that you are in possession of was written entirely in adverb, verb, adverb, adjective, pronoun, and pronoun, adverb, verb. The mortgage has 6,000 mistakes on it. It is a perfect document that has absolutely 0 facts on it, and it was not signed by your bank. No mortgage in the United States of 64 million mortgages was ever signed by the bank since 1934. Stalin captured Russia, nationalized it in 1917. He went to Rothschild and said to Rothschild, I need money to fight the Bolshevik Revolution. Rothschild says, you can have all the money you want. Remove the article from your speech in Russian. And Stalin killed 80 million Russians who refused to use adverb-verb grammar. That was the secret. Because there was no TV or radio back then, it was very easy to genocide a population and without having anybody know it. They did the same thing in Hawaii from 1800 to 1829. 38,000 Hawaiians had their heads cut off because the Hawaiian language has no vowel into consonant conception, and they use prepositional phrases. And because they wouldn't speak an adverb verb like the church wanted them to study, they cut off their heads. And finally, after doing enough of them, people got the message that if we don't follow this new adverb verb program, then we're going to be dead. So that's how they captured Hawaii. So this brainwashing of the adverb verb scenario became relevant, and so Stalin was able to get financing and captured Russia. In 1934, Mao Zedong nationalized China, which had 1,200 dialects. Now they only have 4. So we need usually 3. I just came back from 23 days in China. That was quite an eye-opener, going to China. Everything you hear about China, total nonsense. I'm here to tell you, it's total brainwashing. Those people are, if I blindfolded you and dropped you off in China right now in the countryside, you'd think you're in Indiana. It's flat, all farms, people working, growing corn, wheat, barley, everything. Just they don't have any equipment. They're all out there working by hand. And they're pushing carts. They don't have tractors pulling things. Some of the bigger farms will use a tractor. And these tractors are pretty old. They're like 30, 40 years old. I didn't see any modern equipment anywhere, but I saw a lot of labor. They got 1.4 million people, 1 billion people. So they got plenty of people. But most of the country is either mountainous or desert, so there's very small farm areas. I drove probably 600 miles totally around China's countryside. When I got off the plane in China, I was met by a translator, as I have held an ambassadorship with China since 2002 as a result of with the United Nations and my plenipotentiary judgeship. So when I showed up in China, they met me as a returning ambassador to China, and I was put in the presidential suite at the Bird's Nest, which is the Olympic Village in Beijing, for 10 days with a chauffeured limousine at the state's expense. But then what they wanted me to do was syntax, their electronics program. So I took a 1,800-word patent on a new electronics cell phone. The new cell phone is transparent aluminum, 3 by 5 inch screen, 3D holographic. It has a 200 lume video projector. And then when you set it down, it has pop-up AirTouch keyboard, just like Minority Report. Really state-of-the-art stuff. And it's not a 4 gigabyte, it's 1 terabyte. We're talking 128 gigs on a 20 nano chip to a terabyte for efficiency, memory. The 200 lume is in high resolution Blu-ray, and it puts out a 4-foot screen. Set it down next to your computer, it talks to your computer, transfers all the information from your computer into the cell phone and puts it up on a 4-foot screen. It also has a 2-inch by 2-inch transducer, it's called a subspace transducer. It's a microphone, it's a speaker, and it's also an antenna. Has a 38-mile range, can operate 100 feet underground, underwater, can read minerals up to 100 feet underground because it works in subspace. Now think of the hydrogen atom. You have an electron and you have a proton. This goes into space between the electron and the proton. As you know, all objects that we touch are held together by atoms. Atoms run on electromagnetics. But this operates in the space between the atoms and the electrons in subspace. Therefore, it can transmit 38 miles between towers and also operates underground. So this is the next stealth technology. That doesn't exist anymore with this new technology. The military's had this for 12 years and it's been declassified because all the other militaries in the world now have it, so they're going to make it available to the public. So this is going to be the new cell phones coming out. Even though your Galaxy 3 might be pretty special at the cell phone store, this next generation cell phone is going to be something else. It's going to be Star Trek material. And, well, you've got a really good patent here, right? Written in adverb verb. And I was at this meeting with 5 electronics firms that the Chinese government invited me to be there. We had the guy that developed the subspace technology back in 2000, Michael, and Joseph was a Nikola Tesla electronics genius. He built 4 of these Nikola Tesla coils. So bring these 2 guys together, and they got this great electronics patent. But an object, just like this pen, what's an object worth if you don't have a patent for it that's written in quantum language? They can be protected worldwide. So they brought me in because I'm the only guy on the planet that writes quantum. So we went ahead and we showed it. We brought in 2 university professors from Beijing and 1 from Hong Kong on grammar. And they looked at it and said the patents couldn't be rewritten in less than 4 months. I says, well, give me your patents and I'll bring it back tomorrow morning and we'll all get together. So I rewrote it overnight. It took me 8 hours to write 1,860 words in quantum and restructure it. So every sentence was certified mathematically frontwards and backwards. So when we went ahead and we brought this patent back the next morning, we had 2 3-star generals, 1 2-star general was flown in. We had 5 electronics firms, 3 translators, and the 5 presidents from the electronics companies. And they said, and there was 1 nuclear physicist from Beijing also, as I've got a 4-year background in nuclear physics, because I was with the Polaris submarine program for nuclear degeneration of steel when exposed to plutonium for reactors. I did the work on that. They came back and said it would take 4 months to do a translation. I did it in 8 hours. Then they said, can you write it in Chinese? I says, well, I don't speak Chinese, which is, as you know, symbols compared to our alphabet. I don't speak it, read it, or understand it, or write it. So I got on Google Translator, and word by word, it took me 1 hour to do 1,860 words. And I rewrote it in quantum Chinese, frontwards and backwards. Then they asked me, could you, because I reprogrammed my computer immediately as I worked the math interface on this, I then had interfaced the math program in 150 other languages. And my website is also written in 150 different languages. So it took 1 hour for me to translate from quantum English to quantum Chinese, and it took me 1 minute to translate from quantum Chinese to quantum French, German, Italian, Spanish, Arabic, and in Indian. And what they realized was that now they have a quantum program for a $20 trillion a year jump in contracts for international trade. We also gave them the international transportation of money contracts to transport money between one country and another for the new international quantum banking programs that Russell Gould and I have put together. All 150 nations worldwide have been given the patents to this technology for free. I've made this all available so the whole planet can switch over simultaneously. You can't have a world of fact and the world of fiction exist simultaneously, as fact and fiction can never meet. So in 2000, we educated the entire planet banking industry, and we gave them all of these 115-page bank treaties written in quantum grammar. It took us 7 years to put together. This is a 32-year program, by the way, that I've been working with personally. And been in the architect of this whole thing to change the entire planet from a world of verb into a world of fact, so no one can ever go to war again. Now, what's important about all this is that mankind has been throwing stones at each other because of international communication treaties, because miscommunications. But no one ever went to war over the math problem. Now, how many of you know about the object in Greenland? A couple of you, okay. Well, for those of you that don't know, there is a spacecraft that has melted out of the ice in Greenland. As you know, the North Pole has melted completely. You can go from London to Moscow or to Russia by going over the North Pole now. All the ice cap is gone. The last place that has ice on it was Greenland. Greenland had a 18,000-foot ice cap on it. Well, the spacecraft that is anchored in the center of Greenland created the last ice age 50,000 years ago. It's a weather machine. It's 55 miles wide, 300 miles long, and 2 miles high. The people that lived in it were called the Mois. If you draw a straight line from the spacecraft to the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C., through the Yucatan Peninsula Great Pyramid at Mitsubishi, it ends up on Easter Island where the Mois have been dug out of this dirt. The heads on Easter Island, well, 2 years ago, they finally went ahead and they excavated, and they're all 65 to 85-foot people, full-body carvings. And these were the people that lived in the spacecraft that was uncovered that's melting out of the ice in Greenland. So when you think we've been alone, these people have been up there for 50,000 years. The spacecraft is still active after 50,000 years. It has a 200-mile dampening field where no electrons can flow into it. In 1947, a B-52 bomber flew into that pattern, into the dampening field, when trying to fly between Maine and London. As a result of that, they lost power and crashed in Greenland. As they sent in rescue B-52 bombers to rescue them, they hit that same dampening field, but they veered off. They just ricocheted off of it. And by testing, trying to get to these guys, they were able to bring a circumference and find out that there was an object 200 miles to the center of this field. On the southwest corner of Greenland, there is a small community. It's the only community on the island of Greenland. That community is a military post, CIA, that uses a compressed air generator to operate diesel engines to run a Caterpillar to run back and forth to 200 miles from the base to the object in Greenland.